Okay, so this is just a shout out to all the Auckland gangs. I was just reading who you all are, but I can't find your contacts online, so I have to do a video in hope that this message gets out. So I'm like looking Black Power, Headhunters, King Cobras, Bandidos, Hells Angels, Highway 61, Mongrel Mob, Rebels, MC, Road Knights, Tribesmen. Holy shit, Red Devils, we've got like the most gangs in the world per head of population. I had no idea. Anyway, my point is tomorrow there's a meeting of the Auckland Councillors at the town hall in Auckland. It goes for most of the day. You can go inside the town hall, up the stairs to the left, where they sit in the big round table that they usually broadcast online with no one there. And you can have a chat to them and persuade them not to drop the world's most lethal chemical weapon into 60% of Auckland's water supply later this week. They are absolutely mentally insane, these people. You would never drop. They're saying to protect the forests, they need to drop the world's most deadly torture chemical. It's like a nerve agent. It's like more seriously classed than DDT into our water supply in the Hunua Ranges. It's a silent, deadly killer. It's odorless. It's tasteless. It's so deadly toxic. It kills your cells, so or it mutates them, which cancer, depression, baby deformities, miscarriages, heart attacks, strokes, respiratory problems. All this stuff is because of chemicals, and they are dropping the world's most deadly chemicals in your water supply. Okay, so that is due any day now. As soon as they get a break in the weather, they'll do it. I haven't looked at the weather this morning. I looked at it yesterday, and the first fine day was Thursday. So tomorrow there's a meeting at the town hall in Auckland with the Auckland Councillors, who I call the Revenge of the Nerds, because they're just a bunch of pipsqueaks sitting around a table voting to steal all of your public land, all 331 plots to build houses, arguably an irrational level of houses to accommodate all the people from the countryside who are also about to be poisoned, and to send that, when it becomes completely uninhabitable because of the world's most toxic chemical torture poison spread all over their ecosystem, that then these guys sitting around that table, most of them are voting to provide you alternative accommodation when the countryside is too toxic, because our lakes, rivers and streams are already too toxic because they put poison in it. This is it. They blame it on the farmers. That's because they're trying to demoralise and divest the farmers so that they can, divest the countryside and reform our country into a communist state control country. I was reading about fluoride in the water today as well. I mean, they put that in your water. That absolutely causes developmental retardation, complete lethargy. We have chronic fatigue problem in New Zealand for a reason. Depression, it alters the mind. It's a neurotoxin. It is literally the waste from fertilizer plants with heavy metals like lead and mercury and aluminium and arsenic and all that sort of shit. I mean, it's just, well, maybe not arsenic, to be fair, but maybe, because let's face it, they're literally poisoning us to death. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is happening right now. These maniacs have got helicopters arranged to drop bucket loads of the world's most toxic poison upstream from your water supply. They say they look after your water supply because they drop it at least 2 kilometres away. Well, number one, it's totally evidence that whatever they say on the permit, they lie, and the helicopters drop it right through the water supply. That's happened over and over again, so they're liars. But even if they did keep to the permit and only drop it 2 kilometres upstream, that shit's going to run down through into your water supply. It's going to hit your tap, and your family are going to be tortured to death by chemicals. You think you're all dying of cancer because for what? Because they're putting chemicals in your water. And the people who are deciding to do it are tomorrow sitting at the town hall and around a little table with their little fucking suits on, and they are deciding to kill you. No, well, they've already decided. So what you need to do is go and persuade them tomorrow to rescind their vote and to cancel that attack on our right to life, because they're psychotic animal torturers. All the animals through our bush are going to be tortured to death over hours and hours and hours of screaming agony. Imagine going to a bush and hearing all of the animals, from the birds to the bats to the bees to the microorganisms, who you probably can't hear, but to all, the pigs and the deer And the goats and everything alive in that ecosystem is going to be screaming in agonizing torture. There is no more horrific crime than this. These people are mentally ill. They all should be locked up, but our judiciary is fucking corrupt. I've been in the court for a year against those judges. They sit there, it's a joke. It's a joke. They write minutes that don't reflect the claim at all. At all. Doesn't reflect the crime at all. And this time the High Court have ordered that they cannot stop a government program, even when it's exterminating you by poisoning your water with the world's most toxic, lethal, by the way, male reproductive toxins, so that's why you can't get it up. Low sperm count, erectile dysfunction, that's this chemical, okay? By government order. So I just would like to suggest that some of the other leadership groups in the country, let's go over those names again: Red Devils, Tribesmen, Red Knights, Rebels, Mongrel Mob, Highway 61, Hells Angels, Bandidos, King Cobras, Headhunters, Black Power. What are you doing tomorrow? I think definitely you should go and have a talk to the councillors at the Auckland Town Hall and make sure that they fucking change their mind. And do not put this poison in our water by the end of this week, okay? Because their decision is what makes this happen. It's also Ardern, through her government agencies like DOC, through her $436 million budget that she set in May to kill us by chemicals, because she's smiling us to our death as she transitions the country to UN state number 1 by 2030. And with our entire economy structured to her zero carbon legislation, global tax mechanism of carbon by 2021. Our entire economy divested. And trust me, they're going to crash the economic system. They're going to seize all the money. The freedoms you know at the moment, wow, all gone. You know what? And they're poisoning you anyway. I bet most of you live in these areas where that Hunua Ranges water supply reaches. I would put money on the fact that Parnell and Remuera don't get their water supply from that area, from the Hunua Ranges bombing area. I mean, honestly, they're killing you. This is a deadly, deadly chemical. It will kill you. You'll all have cancers within a couple of years. This shit... Okay, I'm just going to explain again. I've explained this many times. So once it's aerial dropped, it transfers by air drift, transfers by water. It metabolizes. So you can't test for the 1080 after a few days. And it dilutes, so it metabolizes into a citrate molecule, a fluorocitrate molecule that mimics the citrate molecule that kills your cells. It doesn't allow your cells to transition food and light into energy. So it literally tortures your cell to death, kills it. It's like an electrocution of your cells. Or it mutates your cells, so your cells can't meet their death cycle. And because it targets the reproductive organs, you're getting breast cancers, bowel cancers, prostate cancers, ovarian cancers. And because it's a poison and there's no antidote, they'll tell you it's cancer and it's terminal, but it's also incredibly painful and there's no remedy for the pain. You're literally burning on the inside to a lesser degree of what these animals experience for a couple of days in order to die by torture by these psychotics who are running our governments. National and local government, they all need to be cleaned out. And the judiciary are ordering the crime to continue. Clean out. They shouldn't be there. They have abused their public power to the point where they are mentally ill or very criminal or completely thick. There are 3 options: mentally ill, totally criminal and complicit in this crime and advancing it, or completely thick and should not be in public power at all. You know, I mean, that's what's happening here. That's our entire country right now. So, the second thing, if you look at Montagnier, who's a French scientist who found the AIDS virus, he picked up on another French scientist's work who arguably was murdered because he was developing the fact that the water is frequency. Obviously, everything in the world is frequency. Everything is energy. That's physics. The Neanderthals can't handle it because they're just like quite stupid and they think something goes in the water, you can't see it anymore. Oh, it's gone now. That's 1080 facts. Website, that's what they'll tell you. Diluted, gone. No, what happens is that when a substance is put in water, it imprints the water. It restructures the water to an enhanced frequency version of the compound that it was confronted with. So when you put 1080 in the water restructures, even in diluted form, it completely restructures to the frequency of that deadly, deadly, silent, tasteless, odorless killer that comes through your taps and kills your children. And that is what Auckland councillors are putting in your water this week. So again, town hall tomorrow, they've got an all-day meeting. You go up the stairs, a couple of levels, and into the room. Public are totally allowed. I'm not sure if you can wear like fancy jackets and stuff like you guys do, but public are totally allowed. Go in there and commandeer that meeting of those little Revenge of the Nerds group who sit around the table and squabble about absolutely nothing and do absolutely nothing but steal all your land and poison your children, and tell them to rescind their vote because they're poisoning you to death. And there's no question. And the media are totally complicit by not telling you. Fucking assholes. Honestly, you know what? When you see the justice system in real time filled with frauds who won't rule to protect their population, and you see all of Parliament filled with frauds who are allowing this or complicit in this crime, and then you see, I don't know, all of the state sector run by absolute devious, treacherous drones who are killing their population, all of those operational groups like EPRO and FX who are dropping chemical weapons poison from helicopters all over the natural ecosystem to torture all the animals to death. I mean, no one in their right mind would mass torture all that beautiful wildlife to death. It's so treacherous, this crime. You know, it makes me sick to be a New Zealander. I just feel such shame. I just said to my mum the other day, try, like, the feeling of being a Nazi and the Jews being exterminated and shipped off. Try that feeling by a fucking million times. The shame, that's what I feel. Absolute shame to be a New Zealander. And all these people who run this country who are part of this crime, fuck, I want to see them in prison or hung in The Hague for this crime. It's so disgusting. You know, and because what they're doing is they're creating structural reform by demoralisation and divestment. Do you know what? I had the most fascinating conversation yesterday. This will really, really annoy people, but it was tracking back the history of after the Treaty of Waitangi, what happened. You know, obviously the Māori say they didn't secede their sovereignty, and the white people probably, like Bob Jones, say that they lost the war and so they gave it up so that on an agreement that their land would be protected. Well, let's face it, most of their land was then stolen or, you know, sneakily removed anyway. So the treaty was broken. So it's kind of like a piece of rubbish, really. I mean, when a treaty is violated or a contract is violated, what does it mean? But at the end of the day, it was so fascinating what I found out, that what happened is that because this was a colony, it was set up so that the royal family or the British, kingdom would continue to basically rape and pillage everything that we had. So they set up two controlled companies that looked like they were in competition, but they weren't. And what they were doing is they were sending at pretty much rock bottom dollar all the wool and the sort of, I guess, coal and all the resources, especially from the South Island, off to England. And everyone here, it was sort of like the settlers versus the Crown, because the settlers were being completely ripped off. Obviously there was the Māori and the settlers war, but also I think the settlers versus the Crown, because the Crown basically set it up so they had loyalists, like royal loyalists, who controlled the system. So it gave the appearance of a democracy, like the crown had been removed, but they were economically in control because they set up the banks and the money and the trading, shipping, supply routes, etc., with the certain families who were completely loyal to them and were, as I said, raping and pillaging the country so that everyone here was, all our resources were shipped off. We were a slave nation, basically. And the fact that that mentality of the royalists, the loyalists, has continued through to this age. Now, if you think of it like that, then, and you think of 1% of the country in control of, most of the money, most of the property, everything else, and then they co-opt, it's so awesome to see some of the Māori iwi stopping some of these drops now. I'm just so impressed because that's what it should be, that's what it should be like. No Māori group should allow this to happen. It's killing all of their people. Arguably targeted because this targets the food supply of Māori quite specifically, I mean, it's just treacherous. But so it was a front. So imagine, I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying, but imagine that brought into the modern age where there are certain royal loyalists set up arguably through the political spectrum, the state spectrum, that have just fronted it so that most of the wealth and money and everything is monopolised to these people's control, and they're literally stripping the country, still for the benefit of the British Empire and the Royalists and the Royals. I don't know to what extent that is carried through and to what extent that has been challenged, but it's certainly what I believe it was originally. And so if you think of that most of what matters in the country is under control of the royals through certain families that are loyal to them, then at some stage in the 50s, when they decided to, I don't know when they gave up spreading asbestos everywhere but to poison us, but at some stage in the 50s they started, in 1953, when the Queen came to reign, they transitioned the program and started spreading 1080 to poison us all through the water. And all through our natural bush, and that has continued, where they've deliberately poisoned us. And if you think about it, if they used to control the country just to extract the resources and send them to the British Empire, and now, in this day and age, now that Ardern has upped this program with her $436 million budget to strip and divest the entire countryside by poison, because that's what's happening. I mean, this is the world's most toxic poison. And it's not just 1080. It's Britificum, it's PAP, it's a whole lot of others that I can't say. Hackenone, I can't say it. I don't know, there's honestly so many chemicals, and they're all unpronounceable names, which is probably why we all just say stop 1080, because it's hard to understand how to say them. But that aside, if you think about it, now that they've got, so there's a new budget with increasing drops of poison, and the MPI is set up to totally mismarket the poisoning of the livestock as bogus bovis, M. bovis, which is the same as TB, which is the same as Mycobacterium bovis, which they artificially inject into animals to cause TB, respiratory problems, pus, edema, too much fluid, lethargy, discord, uncoordination. And similar results when the PAP poison is used, which they're promoting as toxoplasmosis. So they're making up all these diseases to cover the fact that they're poisoning your livestock and your animals and your people, because they'll tell you it's cancer and it's heart attacks and it's strokes and it's this and that, but it's also the effect of poison. Okay, so they've got all these cover narratives and they're stepping up the quantities under Ardern, the smiling assassin, I call her, because that's what she is. She's smiling you to your death by chemical weapons poison to divest this nation in time for 2021 engineering our economy to UN global control under the unipolar tax mechanism of carbon, and 2030 where we're all going to be sick and dead and locked in Mayor Goff's city precincts, where he's developed all our public land into new private housing stock that we have no need for, unless the countryside is poisoned to death and must be forcibly transferred to the city. Okay, so think about it. Alongside this, they have AI technology. They don't need the people anymore. They can probably run farms completely by robotics now. If they divest the countryside, they can absolutely probably do that. All these weather anomalies that are happening, like was it a tornado the other day in Taranaki or something like that? This can all be created by technology. They have HARP stations that they've built quietly all around the world, HARP. And now they can inflict weather warfare. It is weather warfare whenever they want, wherever they want, targeted. Okay, so combined chemical and weather warfare strip the countryside, right? So, but okay, let's go back. I'm trying to create a picture. It's kind of complicated, but it's my feeling. It's my intuition. So they are able to depopulate, because they don't need the people here anymore to get what they want, to strip the resources. So if they set the colony up way back then after the Treaty of Waitangi just to strip the resources and give the appearance of democracy and competition, but it was just a complete royal monopoly on all the resources that matter, and everyone else didn't have access to money or resource or any business to do with this. So certain families, guardians of the royal control and ownership of this country, bring that to modern time where they don't need the population anymore, and they've decided with their global biodiversity plan with the UN, that they would like to strip the country, New Zealand, back to a bird sanctuary. Okay, so what they're doing is because they can get what they want out of the country without a population, at some point in the 50s, under the Queen's reign, they started poisoning us just to keep us subdued. Same with fluoride in our water, so that we're completely retarded, mentally retarded, increasingly as a population. And then now, with technology, they don't actually need the population here anymore either, and don't want it. Let's face it, humans are fucking awful. So, they have decided, in order to create the climate change crisis narrative that enables the transfer of the system, and arguably the climate change narrative has actually been created to give cover for their poisoning us to death, because they are poisoning us to death. So if you think about it, they've created this excuse for poisoning us to death. Oh, the earth is dying. No, you're putting chemicals in the water and chemicals all over everything living, and the trees are dying, and the soil is dying, and the water is dying, and the microorganisms are dying, and the entire ecosystem is collapsing because you're poisoning everything. So they create the climate change narrative to give cover for the mass poisoning that they're deliberately doing. And I also read that a whole lot of the Eastern European companies don't put fluoride in the water, but America do, New Zealand does, Australia does. I bet most of the Commonwealth countries do. Do you know who runs the Commonwealth? The royal family. So if we were a monopoly as a front to strip our resources to the royal family in the British Empire back then, and those families have systematically evolved, and it's set up through trust. So apparently it's set up so that the dead wives become the trust owners. So in the families, the dead wives become the trust owners, and then the trustees are the men in the family, and sort of in perpetuity they get to do what they want with the trust, but you can't quite see who's responsible. The trustees are the beneficiaries are the effective owners, but it's very strange. But it's set up this way to block most of the population out of access. And if that has evolved to today, where they're going, okay, tired of the people anymore, let's just poison them to death and let's call it climate change. And that enables us to divest them of their financial model, their democracy, their freedoms, their rights, everything. And, let's make sure Gough steals all the public land in Auckland and builds a whole lot of housing so we can house them when the countryside's too poisoned. And let's make sure that there's no open space, there's no car parks, no independent mobility. We reduce all their rights so we can lock them in precincts and completely control them, because that's exactly what's happening. 2030, Sustainable Development Goals, yeah. United Nations, unipolar governance, no freedom. Woohoo! Can't wait. And, definitely that's President Kennedy, what he was speaking of before they shot him. There's no doubt. But anyway, what they are doing right now is literally poisoning us to death to divest all that matters to us and our countryside. And they're toxifying our food system, killing off our farmers. This is just so criminal, and getting away with it because the media helps them. So the media doesn't report the truth to you. Anyway, if you think, I need to spend more time thinking about this, but there's something parallel between the monopoly that was set up after the Treaty of Waitangi was signed between the Crown and the settlers, or the fake, the couple of settlers who had power to strip all the resources, pretend like there was competition between two main companies, and control it so that we were essentially a slave colony being stripped of resources for the royals or the Satanists. And then today, where maybe, just maybe, that monopoly was challenged enough. So even with fluoride in the water, which is like such a communist strategy to dope up all the population and mentally regress everyone, and it's a neurotoxin, so it chemically alters your brain, the way you behave, who you are, everything. It's a violence against children. Thanks, Ardern. And then they stepped that up with 1080, so fluoride wasn't enough, 1080, and probably all the poisons through our food supply. There's so many poisons. We're literally being poisoned to death. What we need is a remediation plan. We need to put all these criminals in jail, everyone from local government, all the state sector heads, and all of the parliamentarians in prison tomorrow. They should all be arrested. And then we need to reset. We need to appoint like a meritocracy where people with intelligence and authenticity and like an evidence career of helping mankind, helping people become healthier, helping people become smarter. The people who are in power right now, they're not that, They're so corrupt, it makes me ill. But okay, but not ill, but metaphorically. Anyway, we need a meritocracy. We need this is a crisis, honestly. We have been attacked by chemicals right across the ecosystem, the most putrid, toxic chemicals. And that decision needs to be rescinded at that town hall tomorrow. So I hope everyone of any manliness, because I'm struggling to find where the real men are in the country, so that's why I'm calling out to the gangs, because you seem tough and capable. So you should really go and have a talk to the Auckland Councillors tomorrow and get them to rescind the decision, so we can at least put a little bit of a hold on our death sentence of, death by toxic water, by government order. It's called genocide, by chemical warfare. And my International Criminal Court claim evidences that, although I'm running out of money to do it, but that's okay. I'll figure something out. Okay, so I don't know if I really made my point clear, because I'm just kind of beginning to piece it together. But I think that what the royal family are doing now is through their royal organisations like Forest and Bird and their grip on our parliament and state sector by these traitorous people who are killing their populations on the order of some little old lady and her cronies overseas who calls herself the Queen. She's a fucking devil, honestly. You don't mass torture and mass murder your population unless you're the devil. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's just no... I mean, I did kind of compare her to Lenin at one stage, but definitely the devil is the only comparison. Because she has 53 countries under her control, and I bet they've all got fluoride in their water. Because she's poisoning her populations to keep them submissive. Anyway, it's the next level of communism. They obviously feel like they're losing control on the population. Now they're gripping it back by poisoning us to death. I mean death, I'm not exaggerating. Have a little read about what that poison does when it's in your water. And at best, they're dropping it 2 kilometres upstream from the main reservoir of the Auckland water supply. Well, that is going to restructure all of the Auckland water supply to be 1080. An enhanced version of 1080. Because water is intelligence, it's pure consciousness, it restructures, and it metabolises the citrate molecule, which just trickles downstream quite quickly, I expect, to the reservoir. You drink that citrate molecule, well, your cells start to be tortured to death and dying. It's a kill program, and it's happening now. So, as I said, if you're in a gang and you would like to, maybe not wear your jacket, but go and talk to the councillors tomorrow, have a little chat, persuade them to stop the poisoning of our water supply, I would be eternally grateful, because I drink that water and I don't want to be poisoned to death. And it's been about 3 years, I think, since the last poisoning, which means, the half-life of this stuff is about 4 years. So it's much diluted right now. The frequency of the water will be as much natural as possible before they poison it again right now. Okay? We need to stop them poisoning it again. And I have been in court constantly, and I do have an International Criminal Court claim, but unfortunately the New Zealand judiciary, I have evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt, needs to be all fired. They are completely corrupt. They are ruling to allow this killing program to continue. It's killing and divestment, and all the judges I've been in front of have ruled to allow it, which means they should not be on the bench. They have no business having anything at all to do with justice. None. Absolutely none. They make me sick. I mean, it's so insulting what they write in their minutes when you read the claim. Death, 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 death. Oh, it's fine. We don't have any power to stop that. Fuck, yes you do. You're on a judge. You've got a hammer for a reason. Use it. Fuck. Oh, I shouldn't swear. Okay, that's my message for today. Please go to Auckland Town Hall tomorrow and persuade the little Revenge of the Nerds gang sitting around that table squabbling and doing nothing but stealing your land and poisoning your water to stop poisoning your water later this week. Thanks.